Artists have different passions. Pieter Saenredam is renowned among the great Dutch painters of the 17th century for his poetic renderings of architecture, and churches in particular. Artists before him had depicted churches, but Saenredam was the first to focus exclusively on actual buildings. And for Saenredam, these buildings were not dead monuments fixed in the past, but living embodiments of Dutch history, past and present.
I'm Renger de Bruin, curator at the Centraal Museum here in Utrecht and professor of Utrecht history. Saenradam came to this city 366 years ago to draw medieval churches. Utrecht in that time was a much older city than big modern cities like Amsterdam and Haarlem, where Saenradam lived. And although much has changed since Saenradam drew here, the city still breathes in medieval atmosphere.
Saenradam came to Utrecht in 1636, and he stayed for 20 weeks. This 20 weeks turned out to be the most intensive work period of his career because he spent them drawing the really ancient, venerable churches of the city of Utrecht, and often dated them to the day of when he made them so that we can retrace his steps with remarkable accuracy.
From a house in this street, Saenradam started drawing the Kerk. Kerk in Dutch means St. Mary's Church. It was one of the most beautiful churches in Utrecht, and Saenradam was fascinated by it.
In his paintings of the Kerk, which was mostly destroyed in the 1800s, sometimes Saenradam made them even more pure, more spare than the church was in reality. He seems to lovingly paint the white plaster walls of the church. He creates a kind of blonde daylight that suffuses these spaces to create a sense of great peacefulness, great spiritual rest. It really wipes away a sense that oftentimes there was great religious struggle that had gone on in the past in the sort of changing of these churches from Catholicism to Protestant religion.
The Dam is the greatest Gothic church in the Netherlands, and its enormous tower dominates the city. It's for Utrecht a landmark like the Empire State Building is for New York City.
Saenradam was inspired by the Dum Tower, this soaring Gothic tower, the greatest Gothic tower in the Netherlands, with its delicate tracery, so that you can look through it and see the daylight behind it. He also recorded inscriptions that he found in the cathedral and around the tower, inscriptions that had been made hundreds of years before.
These stones have an inscription on them. Saenradam saw this inscription and was fascinated by it. It reads, "In 1321, my first stone was laid. After that, in 1382, I was completed as one truly sees."
Why did Saenradam take the trouble to transcribe onto one of his drawings this long inscription? Buildings for Saenradam were living personalities. They were not monuments, they were living things. And it's, I think, typical of his approach to a building as a real personality, as a living, breathing entity, that he records this inscription of the building, telling you its own story. I was built by John of the Dam, so that he, as the artist, listens to the building telling him its history.
We're in the Pieterskerk now, the oldest church of Utrecht, almost 1,000 years old. Saenradam stood here, where I'm standing now, to draw this view, looking down the nave.
Saenradam really admired the Pieterskerk. You can see that in his drawings. When you look at this drawing, it's a very immediate recording of what he saw. You see a little dot in the lower left portion of the drawing on the wall, and that's the vanishing point, the oog in Dutch eye. And he established the vanishing point based on where he was standing, and then established the perspective rendering of the interior. Then he took the drawing back to the studio and begins to purify it in a way, to take away everything extraneous. He makes radical changes to the interior of the church, all imaginary, to make this pure, light-filled, serene space, a space that really brings a kind of perfection and harmony to this historical church. So we can see him always tinkering, tampering, changing right till the last minute that the painting is finished. This is Saenradam's working method, a real perfectionist.
This window is typical for what happened after the Reformation. The stained glass with images of saints were replaced by clear glass. This clear, pure light is what you see in Saenradam's paintings.
So that instead of the kind of dark halls of older Gothic churches with gray stone and colored glass, you get this sort of lifting feeling of light that moves around the columns, that creates a sense of peace and beauty that suffuses the holy spaces of the churches.
This, the Kerk, was the last church Saenradam drew before he left Utrecht. It's the only church of the group that's a Catholic church again.
And so today, when we return to the Kerk and we see it continuing as a Catholic institution, as a Catholic house of worship, we see time continuing, religions changing, life accruing. The lives of today's citizens of Utrecht going on, being led, births, baptism, marriages, deaths, the continuity of life in this city that Saenradam himself felt when he was here so many years ago to draw it.
Saenradam's church paintings owe their poetry to his unique blend of fact and fiction. Saenradam saw them not as documents of how the churches of his country looked, but as real embodiments of the history of a people and a nation. They distill a centuries-old living church to its essence. In painted form, they stand as testaments of the past for future generations.